Good morning. It's Thursday, March the 31st, and we're having our accommodations task force meeting today. I want to welcome everyone on the task force as well as members of the audience. And I'd like to acknowledge that the press and the public have been duly notified of this meeting in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act. What I'd like to do first, Nicole, if we could do a roll call, I would appreciate it to make sure we have a quorum.
Absolutely. Mr. Walker.
Here.
Ms. Limbach.
Here.
Ms. Simbana. Mr. Kay.
Here.
Mr. Jones. Mr. Burns.
Here.
Ms. Vega.
Here.
Mr. Paris.
Here.
Councilmember Streetman.
Here.
You have a quorum?
Thank you. All right, next order of business is approval of previous meetings minutes, and I think everyone was copied on that. That's the minutes from March the 17th. Do I hear a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Okay, any changes, deletions, revisions? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, passes unanimously. Our next order of business is a presentation and discussion with the City of Folly Beach and Folly Beach Tourism and Visitor Promotion Committee, which is known as FBTVPC. Along with us here today, we have Mayor Tim Goodwin of Folly Beach, and I'm expecting Mayor that Carl Halley,
I'm expecting you to.
yeah, your chair will be here at some point. And did you want to, sir, go ahead and begin with any? Okay, why don't you go ahead and do that? And if you want to share with us some of the things that you're doing at Folly Beach in regards to your DMO.
Okay, so our TVPC group started about, on the mayor earlier. I didn't look it up, but that's my recommendation is about 18 years ago. So it's been around for a long time. And, we started many years ago because we felt like at the time we worked with a lot of help from the Charleston Business Bureau. At that time, we looked at, they had a booklet they sent out. We had like an 8-page ad. I mean, that was, Folly Beach, that was what you got. Over the 18-year time now, I'm on the board of the Charleston Business Bureau, and we also participate with them. We send them money every year, and we buy advertising through them every year. So we mended fences and worked around to get back in good working relationships with them. So I would urge you to, when you follow this path, that you do that in mindset that we're going to do this in cooperation with the Business Bureau and not just say, we're going to leave you, bye, goodbye. We don't want anything to do with you, period, whatever. The Business Bureau is a very politically heavy group. As all of you know, Alphonse is kind of in the crosshairs of the state Senate right now. So when you talk about things like that, Folly Beach ended up in 2 state Senate hearings when we broke away 18 years ago because of the fight to keep your money there. Your money is a lot more than what we were paying back then. But when you think about it, that's a lot of money that goes away that they have to figure out where to get it from and how to pay those deals at that point in time. Oh, it's not?
Check.
Oh, well, there you go. All right. So, hopefully, do I need to go back through all that again?
Yes.
For your minutes? If you don't have anything to question, you know how to get a hold of me. So there, that would be my urge that you go in with your eyes wide open and not in a closed session or closed mind to the whole process. I will tell you that our first few years with the Turk Committee, they scrutinized us very, very much. I was telling the Mayor Pounds that they scrutinized us so much that we, as a city, bought some. That's Carl now. He's lost. That we bought some plastic cups to give away at a festival, and they made us repay $200. I mean, it was down to nickel and diming you, so they will watch you like a hawk for a while. And I'm sure that all comes from political pressures. But so I'm the historian in this group. Now comes the man who can answer your questions about what they're doing today and their mindset of how they've done since, how long you been on this group? Forever, it feels like. But Carl is a mainstay. He led the group for a long time, and now he's still the wise guy, the wise man. I won't say old man, the wise man in the group about doing business and advertising and doing it right. So I'll let you talk to them for a minute, and then we'll see if they have any questions. How about that? About I just give them kind of a history. So you tell them what you're doing now and how you decide who you advertise with and that kind of stuff. This is you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks. Sorry I'm late. I went to the public safety building first. So it shows you I don't follow directions well.
Mr. Halley, could you introduce yourself?
I sure will.
Okay.
Carl Halley, Hally. Lived on Fowley for 20-some years. I've been on the planning commission, and I went over to tourism commission about 7 years ago. Mayor has probably told you the history that we backed out of the participation with CAVB in the mid 2005, 6.
About 18 years.
And I've been involved with the changeover that we made. That when I got involved, little history. I'll continue with the history. You may. Our controller was in charge of the tourism committee, and he didn't have a lot of marketing background, so we made a change. And we started out by hiring a consultant and put it out for bid. And Andy Brock put together a business plan for us. He's a political and marketing consultant in the state. And from that time, we put together a RFP, hired a marketing firm to help us with promoting Folly Beach. The firm that we use is Little Dog Agency. They happen to be domiciled in Mount Pleasant. And in that, maybe, I don't know your makeup of your committee, but we're all volunteers. We had no one to be there on a day-to-day basis to manage the program. So we felt that we would hire someone locally to help us with the day-to-day management and also recommendations on our marketing approach. And since that time, we've been, we have a different situation from you in that you are, I understand, leaving all your funds with the CAVB. And we had no funds in the CAVB. So consequently for us, what we did, if we contributed, was a plus. If you're taking away, they may have a little different attitude in looking at your approach. So we have a marketing plan. We meet pretty much monthly. It used to be they meet very infrequently, but we have a wonderful group of volunteers that have good ideas. We have people from the restaurant and lodging industry and culture on our committee, and 7 people. And we have a gentleman now who is a chairperson. He runs a restaurant on Folly Beach, Ed Imes. And we rotate the committee every 2 years. The city council reappoints people if we have a vacancy. So I don't know what to tell you in detail. I probably best to answer any questions that you might have. But we found that aside from a lot of residents that don't like us because we've got more tourists, but I think we've tried to our thrust was, you know, the reputation of Folly, pretty much anything goes. It had, our thrust was two. One, we wanted to fill the heads and beds off season. And we wanted to try to upgrade our clientele. In other words, more families, less rowdies. And maybe that's, you're not allowed to say that kind of stuff today, but that was the general tenet of what we were trying to do. And I think we see a lot more families. We are occupied pretty much 365 days a year. And we can't say that we did that. We know that it's happened all over Charleston. And CAVB has, you know, they contributed to that success, obviously. We have a nice relationship, I think, with Helen and her staff. Our representative was a fellow by the name of Sandy Nivens. He's just left. And we have a new gentleman now that will be our contact. But we meet, they come once a year and present their program for the region to us. And we make a contribution to them annually for their work for the general area. And I think it's worked pretty well. Is there anything I can answer other than, yes, sir?
What did you do to upgrade and fill the off-season? You said that was your goal. What did the island do to make that happen? What kind of things did you do?
Well, we targeted, you know, our advertising before was all over the place. And we did signs at the stadiums of the state schools. And we directed our advertising to, we shifted one away from print pretty much, and it's happening all over, and went more to digital. And we shifted our direction to certain cities outside of, you have to mark it out 50 miles outside of the city, as you probably know. So we picked cities that we felt were in driving distance of Folly Beach. And we would target, we would still target, and we move it around a little bit, have around 8 or so cities that may be no more than a 10-hour drive. Although we've taken some flyers. We had committee members that had a relationship in one in Seattle, and it made some sense because we have Alaska Airlines was flying. And we've done Denver. Someone wanted to try Denver. And gee, the next one is what's come up recently is San Antonio, Texas, for some reason. I don't know. We're not advertising it, but that was mentioned for next year. So we targeted different markets and used different methods to get there. And we dropped some of the things that were local. We had advertisements in the, you know, little cards in the hotel rooms and stuff. People are already here. You don't need to tell them to come to Folly. It's just, I mean, Lost Dog has given us some good ideas, but we've had committee members that have also generated some good ideas for us. But we feel it's been pretty successful, and I can't take credit for it. It's partially CAVB. It's just what's happening to the people from the Northeast coming this way.
Is it proper to ask your expenditures with Lucky Dog?
Lost and Lucky.
Or Lost Dog, excuse me.
No, not Lost Dog. No, Lost. That's a restaurant.
Yeah, right.
Little
I'm confused.
But Lost Dog's a very good restaurant if you make it across the bridges.
Little.
We pay them a monthly fee. And that's pretty much going up a little bit. It's not dramatic. And then we pay them, of course, they make money on what they advertise. They get kickback from whether it's a paid newspaper, print, you know, they get 50, the standard in the industry is about 50% that they get. So I figure they probably make $40,000 a year on Folly Beach. Yes, sir.
Carl, can you explain the budgeting process that you go through every year? For a new year and your marketing plan and how you budget for that?
There's this roulette wheel we use. Now, when we look at the previous year and we take input from our committee members. We know we have one gentleman is with Dunes Properties, which operates in this area too, I think. And he has input on when his.
That's Vince?
Yeah.
I think he's after Tim's job.
No, he's a.
He could have it, right?
Yeah, he didn't pay his $50 this time, so I don't know.
But,
He put it on his expense account.
Oh, did he?
No, just kidding.
yeah. But we take information from our members and also we look at what's happened in the previous year. And we take this is sort of a general thing. I'm not giving you anything you probably don't know. We take input from a little dog. And they do some pretty good analytics. They use Google Analytics. And younger people know all about that. For me, the challenge was learning all this digital stuff. I mean, I know print, the other medias, but not digital. And so we look at things. We have about, I don't know if Aaron, our administrator, has shared. I think he shared some of this budget stuff with Desiree or somebody on your committee. And we have certain things we are committed to. We budget, give money to the CAVB. We pay the monthly fee for Little Dog. And then we divide it into various categories of whether we want to spend more money on print or other types of media. And digital has become a big thing. We experiment with different magazines. We've been trying to upgrade where we used to be in sort of the AAA travel magazine and stuff like that, which is good, I guess, but we dropped that. So we were actually, as you might laugh about Folly Beach, we advertise at Garden and Gun. And, you know, you're not going to get some person that's different, you know, people we don't want, don't read that. Not that we don't want them, but we're trying to reach into, you know, we advertise in coastal living, southern living, and we try to, where we do print, and they also have a digital backup. All these companies have digital backup where their readers can access that information. And and then we present it to council and explain why we're doing things. And we have one category, which I will mention to you. We also try to upgrade our visitor facilities with our funds. Such as we put in a extra sanitation station, trailer with toilets and stuff. We put in a water fountain for people on Main Street. We do things that are, we call it visitor enhancement projects. We do things that will give our visitor a better experience on Folly, and hopefully that person will then communicate word of mouth and say, hey, listen, you know, we upgraded our park facility with a dock and things that are directed towards a visitor experience. And you can't do that. You wouldn't have that flexibility if all the money were handled by the CAVB.
Carl, I was reading some of the minutes from past meetings of the TVPC. And to your point there with the visitor center you have, it mentioned the possibility of having a history museum. Do you all have that as well, or putting that in place?
That is not our, that, we might help fund it, but we do not, that's not our, one of our projects.
Okay. All right, I'd like to back up just a minute here. Good information so far, good discussion. Just, I guess from a history standpoint, I guess I'd like to know, because our task force is, you know, we're tasked with, what do we do with this 30% that goes to CBB every year? Okay, do we do anything different or not? But I'd like to have some sense, an idea of why you all kind of broke away from CBB and formed your own organization or own DMO, if you will. I mean, were you not happy with CBB?
I can't answer that.
Yeah.
That would have to be.
Maybe that's the history lesson we need to give from the mayor.
Well,
Okay.
and that's what I was saying earlier. We, at that point in time, the Visitors Bureau was not really promoting Folly Beach. They were promoting the city of Charleston, but not Folly Beach. I think y'all have a little bit different history with them right now, working with Isle of Palms and different things. But that's where we were like 18 years ago. So that's why we broke away. You know, it said the city council said, well, maybe we can use that money a different way. And that's kind of what Carl alluded to. When he got here, they were not getting any money. And over the years, we've gotten back with a better working relationship where we do give them some money, but it's money that we as a city, or they as a tourist visitors committee, control. So that's.
Okay, did you also seek Turk approval prior to breaking away? And for someone who may not know, I think
No,
everybody on the panel
we didn't
knows.
ask their approval.
Yeah.
You know,
you just did it.
it was a law. We could do it. We did it.
Uh-huh.
And that's what I was saying earlier, that, you know, we were scrutinized very, very, very hard by the Turk committee, down to, oh, you guys spent $200 out of all this money the wrong way. So we, over the years, and I believe Carl will attest to this, we make sure that every time we talk about expenditures, and we talk about budgets, that we are looking at it and saying, are we following the regulations? Are we following the rules to make sure that we're doing what we need to do for tourism and tourism enhancement, and how this money can really be spent?
And the TVPC is dealing strictly with the 30% that has to be.
These guys
to a
deal with
DMO.
all the A-tax money that goes back to the city.
Just 30%,
Well,
not the promotional stuff.
right. But that committee too gets scrutinized by city council about, you know, what are you doing and who are you giving the funds to? And, you know, everything has to be advertisement or tourism related. But when you talk about tourism dollars, you know, and we talk about doing this, it's going to be, you have to do everything you can to say, okay, you're going to, some of this money somewhere in one of these committees is going to go to help promote. I'll give you one example, promote, take a kid fishing day. We did the group, Folly Beach Anglers, a fishing group, was putting on annually on the pier. So the pier got tore down. Hopefully we'll start back when they get back up. But, you know, they said, okay, we go to the A-tax committee, the other group, and ask for money to help put this promotion on. Well, the question was, where are you getting your kids from? So they said, okay, we're going to get tourists, people who are staying at the hotels and staying at, you know, rooms and houses. So they actually keep a record of whoever comes to sign their kid up and where they come from. And we've had them from as far away as China. So we surpassed that 50-mile radius, you know, so that's kind of the scrutiny for city council to make sure that the money's being spent well. But when you break away, the politics will start. And, you know, that's, like I said, y'all got big bucks. Y'all got a big stake in the game. So when you break away, be ready for the political action groups to be knocking on your door.
Now, as prescribed by state law, you also have an accommodations tax advisory committee,
Right.
right?
Yeah, that's the other group we were talking about.
Right, and does that deal basically with the 65%?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's the group that we, as a city, go to and say, okay, here's money that the city wants to get out of that 65%. Even though as a city, you could go take it all away. I mean, you could go take all that money as long as you're using it for tourists, but we don't take it all. But we do go after a fair portion of it to help fund litter control, cleaning up the beach, sanitation workers working on the weekends, emptying all the garbage cans on the beach walkovers, extra beach patrol people through the public safety department for the summer, part-timers in the summertime, things like that. And also the looking at this group, as Carl mentioned, had a restroom trailer put in, and we could do it as a trailer because you can move it. We didn't have to elevate it and all that kind of stuff. Looking at trying to get another one put in on the other end of the island where people go. There's no facilities down there. So there's things like that. And then, of course, once we get that set there, then you have to pay to keep it up. So, you know, that's some of the other 65%.
I've got one other question before I open it up. I've asked too many questions already, I know, but do you have a contract with TVPC? How does the city work that?
Y'all work with them for that.
Yeah.
We do not have a contract. We are an independent committee, independent from the city. It was established, and it's according to the state code. And the only thing we answer to the city on is getting our budget approved. Other than that, we are pretty much independent. We were fortunate to have a lawyer as our administrator for a number of years, Spencer Whitmore, who's now a politician. And it really helped with her legal knowledge when we would sort of have to look at whether does this fit within our direction of the city on some of these issues that we have. And so that was a big help to us.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
May I go ahead and follow up on that? And that was kind of my next question about how y'all actually, you know, kind of the nitty gritty of that development. How did you file? Was it grassroots? It sounds like maybe it was, or was it actually a city initiative that appointed members who were independent? I'm just a little confused as to who actually filed for the DMO, the 501c6, if I'm.
Yeah, I don't know who filed for it. I wasn't involved when it was.
It was city
Established.
council back at the time. So our comptroller at the time, you know, came to city council during a budget time, yes, I remember, and said, here, you know, here's all this money going out, and, you know, we could do X, Y, and Z. So it's like the city council said, okay, well, that sounds like a good idea. Hopefully it works good, you know, so we're out there kind of like it's Folly Beach finds itself doing stuff a lot of times like the lead test group for trying to do this, even though it was in the law. But so it was a city council decision in the beginning. And then to make sure that we had volunteers that was going to work on the committee, and that they are, like Carl said, we hear from them once a year, unless we go to them and say, hey, can y'all help fund something over here? Y'all got a little bit of extra bucks and do something for tourists, and yeah, there we go. And our former city administrator, before she became a real politician, for about a year and a half, almost 2 years, I guess, maybe, actually served on the Turk committee. So that helped us a lot too, as far as answering questions, even though we go to Spencer and say, how about this? And she said, well, I don't know. Let me ask some of the other members of the Turk committee, see what they think, you know. So that's kind of how it got started.
So it was a city appointed committee.
Yeah, but you know, we had to start somewhere.
Right,
And it started with the city council, but
but now it's
we-
not.
well, we appoint committee members. But once they're,
But it's
unlike a planning commission
Okay,
or design and review board, they're not really, they're on their own. They're in that group that's on their own. They're not run by the city.
thank you.
Yeah, there are various categories. I think we have cultural,
Mhm.
we have accommodation or lodging, we have restaurant, retail, and then I think I'm sort of, then we have general.
Yeah.
And the city, when we have a vacancy, we have applications which are submitted. And it's not to us, they're submitted to council, and council appoints the member to fill whatever position is open. Sometimes they listen to us. Sometimes they don't.
Like they're really, yeah.
That's right. You know, if we have a member, this guy would really be good, or this woman would really be good, they'll say, hey, sounds good, and they'll look at the credentials.
When you're advertising, whether it's digitally or print or whatever, it's your website you're trying to get everybody to get to, correct?
We are, you know what, I'll share this with you.
Yeah.
This is top secret.
All right.
There was
Hold on,
there's a website called follybeach.com. And that is an independent company out of Knoxville, Tennessee that has it. And we said, that was the top hit.
Yeah.
And we said, we are going to attack that website. For the first time in 7 years, we were ahead of them on Google. But, you know, that sort of that was our rallying position.
You didn't try to buy it?
We talked to them, but they were ridiculous in what they wanted. And we figured we could create our own.
And the one that you do, I know when you sit down with Little Dog, they give you your Google Analytics. What do they say is their number one source of attention to your site? They're good. What does Google tell them?
You know, I don't have the statistics with me. I wish I could tell you, Randy, but I don't. Some of it's a good portion. Some of it comes from CAVB, from them. So don't shut them out.
No,
Whatever you do.
I know from a fact, from our business, it's the CAV. They're bringing big stuff into
Yeah,
us.
yeah,
digitally.
they do a good job. I think they do a good job. They just don't have
No, I know.
they don't know the details of what we have.
What you pay them is basically for advertising in their book and in their site, right?
No, we give them a stipend every year,
Right.
which is independent. We advertise in the Bride magazine. We advertise in the little Charleston area.
So your stipend
Area's
is to
got-
remain a member of the CDB, and then you don't pay for advertising?
Oh, yeah, we do pay. That's separate. Okay. So we pay for the American,
Yeah.
independent of what we spend.
Right.
And then we also pay for advertising.
Carl, do you have any metrics that you analyze with your relationship with Little Dog to measure what's working and what's not working?
You know, it's very hard in advertising and marketing to zero in on exactly what works and what doesn't. We do have some metrics. I don't have them with me, but we can see on hits on our digital and the follow through on those hits. And so we do measure that, and they provide that for us. And I assume any marketing organization would do that. So we do it, and we look at different metrics. We ask, we deal with Soraya, who is the part owner, she and her husband, I think, owner, Soraya McKay. And we'll ask her for a certain analysis at a meeting, and next month she'll come back and try to provide that for us.
So in other words, when you advertise Denver and Seattle, you had a way to know whether you actually pulled anybody from those sites, or it was just
We do, you know, the hits that come from, certainly on digital. I'm not on, that was all digital. I don't think, or it could have been radio too. I think it was mostly digital. But you can see they give you a graph on whether they're up or down, you know, but it's when you get to these faraway sites, you might say, oh, we got somebody there. But what did it cost you to get that person, that family there?
Have you seen any effects from the flights that we're now having coming into Charleston? A lot of direct flights from different parts of the United States. Have you seen any effect on Folly from that? Can you measure that in any way?
No, but that influences where we advertise, direct flights. We look for direct flights. You know.
Okay.
And with the Breeze Airways, which is now flying in Charleston, there are a lot of different places. Most of our advertising is targeted north and Midwest. But we do get, you know, well, you've had this too, the pandemic. I don't hope I don't insult anybody, but I got tired of seeing those New York license plates. And it wasn't, you know, everyone was coming down, but we did advertise, you know, with the schools, you know, teach on, you know, do the your education while you're having fun at the beach rather than staying in Schenectady, New York, or wherever.
You mentioned earlier that some, I guess, residents of Folly aren't exactly happy with you from time to time. Can you
Yeah,
elaborate on that a little bit? What would make them unhappy with you?
well, you know, you've never come to Folly on a weekend and trying to get on the Folly when the traffic's so bad. You think the connectors, maybe that gets tied up too. But, you know, it's mostly traffic. And it's mostly, hey, this is our little island. There's a sort of a thing. You have, I'm sure, different things, you know, one of the things is keep Folly, people say. You know, and what is that? Funky Folly. We advertise our funkiness because, you know, we're not competing with Keeler. We'll probably, you know, we overlap to some with Isle of Palms, but it's different people. Probably a little different base from what you're after.
Are you consciously trying to pull more people into Folly or going at it from another direction?
Oh, no, we are trying to, yeah, we are, well, that's what we do. It's try to bring people to Folly. But again, we were trying to bring them in off season. And now we found that our off seasons are, there really isn't an off season. It dips a little bit. February is probably one of our slow months. But one of our members of our committee, he has a restaurant. He said, you know, his winters are hardly a dip these days.
I want to follow up on that because I also noticed that, you know, here on Isle of Palms as a resident and also a business owner in the tourism industry, walking that fine line of being residentially friendly and also open for tourism has always been kind of this muddied line. It's a really hard line to walk sometimes. And how have y'all managed that? I did notice that you said bringing maybe a more valuable head in bed would possibly mitigate that because you're bringing more revenue, but maybe not necessarily more quantity of people. What other approaches have you used to walk that line? Or do you just say, nope, we're tourism?
No, well, number one, our enhancement projects, our residents benefit from that as well. So, you know, most of the comments are sort of snide comments and, but, you know, people in the winter on Folly used to be, you know, it's like a ghost town. It's sort of neat for the residents. You got a breather. There's no breather now. And I guess that's what people feel. Mary, you might get more of that than I do.
From the political side of that, to answer your question, heads and beds was a big push to get people here. And you have to remember, as Carl said, and y'all have the same thing on the connector, traffic. But those aren't, 90% of the time, those aren't people who are coming here to stay. Those are people that come here and go home at nighttime on Saturday, and you come back on Sunday and go home at nighttime on Sunday. So that's a message. ATAX money is used very wisely by the city of Folly Beach to keep taxes down. That's another message that you tell people. So the people causing the traffic generally on the weekends aren't the guys that's paying to keep your taxes down. It's the guys that these guys bring in that stay in the homes, that utilize the restaurants and the businesses on Center Street more so than the day trippers. And I hate to say that because, you know, that's not a good term to use, not politically correct if you use them. But the day trippers that come back and forth, that just show up on the weekends.
And do you have messaging out there that's exactly what you just said? It makes perfect sense, but maybe getting that message out there so that educating maybe your residents in.
Well, we try to do that education over and over and over again. So, you know, it just depends on if they're having a good day or a bad day when they call and say, okay, slow down a second and we'll talk about this, you know. So we, the staff and me get to educate people a lot on the residents. And then, as Carl mentioned, you know, they always say, well, I see all these people from Ohio show up down here and block our streets. Well, they're not really blocking your streets because they're unloading at a house for a week or a weekend, but generally, you know, they bring the family, they're unloading for a week. A lot of times with the advent of golf carts is what we've seen spread tourism across the island more than anything else, because now where I live on the back of the island has tourists, which is, knock on wood, so far, mostly families, but they can get anywhere they want to by renting a golf cart for a week and driving. So they don't have to hand carry everything to the beach. They can load it on the golf cart and drive to the parking lots of the beach. But so, you know, there's a lot of things that influence tourism, but tourism is the only industry we have. And people, when you start talking about, well, we don't want so many tourists, but you know, okay, so do you want to compete with Kiowa? Do you want to put up a gate? And if you put up a gate, this is what your taxes is going to do to pay for that. And then that usually kind of slows the conversation down really well.
Our first challenge with the residents was we decided we ought to have a sign that you had to follow. And it was a digital sign that we came up with. And one of our local Charleston artists who does a lot of sign painting happened to be on following. So we put a sign up with digital sign, and that we had council finally decided that that was a good idea. And I think a lot of people oppose that sign, and the visitors, TVC putting the sign up. But I think, as we've seen, we put information on that sign for visitors, but also for our residents when they come in, you know, it's an election coming up on the 5th or whatever. So that was a first. And we used TVPC money to build that sign, and the city maintains it. We create the problem and they solve it.
You know, for many years, for those of us who have been around here for quite a long time, such as myself, our neighboring island over here was advertising Folly Beach quite effectively. They had a sign.
Oh,
And
really?
it said, next week, please try Folly. So I think that's since been taken down. That you should give them a little credit for helping you be successful over there.
No, those were just pictures they were trying to.
Questions?
One more question on the structure. So the city passes their 30% of ATAX funding on to the TVPC, and then your committee decides how to spend that. Is there any additional revenue source besides the 30% of ATAX funds?
No, we toyed with advertising on our website, but we felt that was, well, it was too confusing. We didn't need that money. So that's it, the 30%.
Thank you.
Can, ATAX, you mentioned golf courts, and the problem is where do you park them? Now, can ATAX money be used to create an area for parking golf courts? That type of thing, or is that the city?
Well,
That's-
that would be, I don't know, that would be you'd have to. I can't answer that. I'm not qualified to answer that question. But that'd be something to certainly look at.
Well, just a real off the cuff answer. If you did something like that, you created a spot with ATAX money to park golf carts. If you created a spot with ATAX money to park golf carts, then you'd almost have to say these would have to be rental golf carts, not locally owned golf carts, because, you know, you're creating something that people coming in and renting it. So that means they don't live there. They're coming from somewhere else. It would be a very hard thing to do, probably.
Other questions?
I have a question.
Yes,
Okay.
Steve.
Who handles the accounting for the
It's a good
TVPC?
question. That's a good question. I was gonna mention that. We do not handle any money. We use our city controller
Mhm.
and our payroll person, or payroll, the person that handles payables. So all the money is held in a city account. It's for TVBC, but it's our controller manages the money, and we use him for advice on a regular basis. And we have a representative from city staff who comes to our meetings. And she happens to be the one who handles payables. So, and that's good. And I think we're supposed to have a council person, but we never, I don't know who it is. She never comes.
Well, we get a new council.
You know, stick them on our committee.
So you have a city clerk, I guess, that attends your meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
She does. We meet second Wednesday of the month, usually 6 o'clock.
Curtis, did you have something? You got it? Right.
Carl, concerning your website, do the businesses that advertise on the Folly Beach website, do they pay anything for that advertisement? You know, you've got rental companies, you've got restaurants, you've got service providers, surfing lesson people, fishing charters.
No,
Do they pay anything for that, or that advertisement?
they do not. Now, I'll explain our website to you. The website was owned by our FAB group, Folly Association of Business. They own the Visit Folly website. Rather than buy the website of Folly Beach, and we had our own website, it was pretty much ineffective. I don't even remember the name of it. Come to Folly or something. We got rid of that. And we approached FAB and said, can we buy your website, or can we at least have control of it? We do not formally own that website. It's still owned by FAB. But we manage it. And FAB members can advertise on it, no charge. We try to list every business that is a legitimate business that wants to be on it. We don't really put any limitations on size or what they really do.
So you have a pretty good relationship with your business association. Can you explain a little more, but besides maybe just the website integration?
Well, we do have a good relationship. We have some members that are also members of FAB. And we also have the same advertising. So, and Little Dog was their advertising agency when we hired them. But we interviewed 3 or 4 different sources. And a couple from out of the city, Columbia and various places. And then we had some that were going to wanted to handle it digital, and some handle print traditional methods. But we went to Little Dog because they could act as our agent on everything, and also they were local. And so Saray is part of our team. She comes to our meetings, and with us, with the exception of when we decide whether we want to give her a raise. She's there and contributes as a member. But FAB, we don't do anything formally with FAB, but we work together.
Do you have regular audits with Turk in any way? Do they ask to see information quite frequently from you?
Oh, And that's why we try to keep it straight. And that's why, Spencer, we looked at everything and to make sure that we were spending it appropriately. And we were spending what they don't want you to build up a big fund, you know? They want you to spend what you take in. And part of that is we have an excess, then we go to the city and say, hey, there's a project we can help you with that's tourist oriented. So we don't get in trouble with the state.
Other questions? Have other communities reached out to you to inquire as to your DMO model, or are we the first?
Unless they've talked to Aaron or Spencer, I think you're, and you have a much bigger fund than we do. I think your income is a lot bigger than ours. So, I mean, I'm sure you're more meaningful to the city. Does FAB or does CAVB know you're looking to,
They were here last week.
were they?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah, this task force we're trying to be as open as we can. That's what we're doing. We're
Yeah.
trying to have open dialogue between the task force members. We're trying to allow presentations. We've had CVB, as Randy mentioned. We asked, the task force itself asked that you come in, and afterwards we'll have some conversation at the end of the day to see what our next steps are. So we're just trying to gather as much information as we can. Our singular purpose for this task force that was appointed by city council unanimously is to bring this group together, gather information, ultimately make some recommendations that will go back to city council as to how we deal with that 30% ATAX. That's our singular purpose for this task force itself. So, any other questions?
What? Sorry.
Sorry.
I guess the main thing, you're able to zero in on Folly Beach. Whereas right now, we're sort of sharing our money with the whole world, basically, in all of South Carolina. So that's the big benefit I think that we are hoping to get, is to be able to zero in on Isle of Palms, not the package. And so that sounds like what you were able to do.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
But remember, CAVB is bringing people into this area,
Oh,
so,
right.
so don't shut them out. Who was in here from CAVB?
Helen.
Heather, Helen.
Yeah.
Helen, oh,
Yeah.
good. She's a real good salesperson.
Yes, she is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's scary from what I hear.
No,
I'm just teasing.
but I would say one thing to your point is we Poly Beach, zero in on Poly Beach. But you guys have a little bit of different animal in Isle of Palms, and that y'all have wild dunes. Y'all have hotels that you can try to bring groups in for conventions. I've been here for different conventions and stuff. So I'm sure that the Charleston Business Bureau or Visitors Bureau helps a lot in that. So don't kind of throw the baby out with the bathwater in your thinking process, because bringing those kind of groups into your bigger tourist venues or convention venues is going to be important going forward to keep your money up.
Mayor, are you a member of the Board of Governors for CVB?
Yeah, I am. It's been interesting because everybody used to show up at all the meetings, but then the craziness started, and all these Zoom meetings and everything. So now they're trying to get back to people showing up. But yeah, and it was pretty contentious for me being there for a while with other members who, like former Mayor Cromer, who said, "Yeah, you're here and you're not paying any money." Well, we are paying money, but we're not giving you all the money. And Dick and I got along real well. I'm just saying, there were other people that brought that up, but yeah, we do participate.
Okay. Any other questions? Yes.
Straightforward. what was your 2021, the 30%? What was that total number? Can you share that with us? I think it's around $250,000. But I might just be
I don't know.
guessing.
It's around 300,000. In that area.
Just to
Vince is our-
compare to
he's our
us.
money man.
It's nice
He
to
can
know
answer
that
this.
relative number.
I'm only, on the mayor, email address. I'll send him a copy of our budget. For information. In their budget, and, kind of like where it's been, so you can have.
Great. Okay. Anything else? Well, I want to thank Mayor Goodwin and also Mr. Halley for coming in and speaking to us today, making a presentation. Good information for us to hear. And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge, your history, and what you're doing with your own DMO. So no further questions. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda.
Thank you.
Thank you,
sir.
Thank you very much.
I want to thank this group too for reminding me what traffic is like. Early in the morning, Charles.
You are welcome. All right, let's see. All right, we just had the presentation discussion with the City of Folly Beach, the Folly Beach Tourism and Visitor Promotion Committee. So we thank them again for being here. A lot of good questions that were asked, a lot of information shared. So our next item on the agenda is item number 4, and that's a presentation of all the Isle of Palms tourism related revenues. And we're going to have our finance director, Debbie Suggs, make that presentation. And then we will open that up for Q&A also after that's done. Debbie?
Good morning, everybody.
Good
So
morning.
first, I'm going to talk about this schedule with the pie chart on it. Ooh, that sounds really loud. Did you read this one?
Got a mic close by, yeah.
So for purposes of trying to give you all a perspective of what accommodations taxes means overall to the city, we did a 5-year history. So FY17 to FY21, these are actual audited numbers. And then made the pie with the 5-year total. So you can see that accommodations taxes from all sources, and we'll talk about the different sources in a minute, is about 1/4 of the city's overall revenue budget. So it is important to the city's financial situation. And while the 35% DMO contribution is specific to the state accommodations tax, there are additional accommodations taxes. The county has a 2% accommodations tax that the city gets a piece of. And then the city has a 1% accommodations tax and a 1% beach preservation fee. But all those taxes are assessed on the same accommodations transaction. So somebody spends the night, their taxes include 2% for the county, 2% for the state, and 2% for the Isle of Palms. But the 35% only relates to the 2% state piece. And the narrative second page just kind of talks about each of the different accommodations taxes and how they came to be, what the regulations are on their spending. They're very similar for the state, the county, and the 1% city. The only difference for the additional 1% beach preservation fee that the city has is that is significantly restricted only for beaches. So there's no tourism component to that 1%.
Debbie, the Robin Hood provision, which takes from the rich and gives to the poor, so to
That's
speak.
right.
If I'm reading this correctly, it was about $180,000 that came out of our tax funds that gets in that pool
Right.
this
And
past year.
I can't tell from that whole total what is Robin Hood and what is whatever the state keeps. I'm sure they keep some sort of administration fee. But that's the total on the remittance that the city received. That's the total that was held back. So there is different law that governs the spending of the state accommodations tax versus what's called the local accommodations tax. And the local would be the county and the city piece. But the restrictions are very similar. They're either for tourism promotion or to support tourism activities. The Isle of Palms, of course, is unique. We have a large tourism component. So almost any area of city business or city departments has a tourism benefit. And so we use that as a justification for spending accommodations money to help support city services. We know, for instance, the fire department keeps statistics on whether a service call is related to a resident or somebody who is a non-resident. And so we can use those statistics to support using accommodations money for public safety. Any questions on the revenue side? I did add at the bottom here in red that the contribution to the CVB, and if you look at it as a percentage of total accommodations revenue, it's 13%. So it moves from 35% of state to 13% of all accommodations together. But that number is not going to change if we create a DMO. It's just going to go to a different place. Or if it's split in some way between the CVB and some other DMO, the total will remain.
So the
Approximately the
bottom
same.
line is that for FY 2021, $733,400 has to be spent on tourism and promotion.
Well, it has to be transferred to an
To a
organization
DMO.
with a,
DMO/DMO.
Mhm.
Yes. And that number, in all likelihood, the way it's looking, will probably grow this year. Any questions? Mark?
What
Sam?
projects are currently bonded using accommodations tax revenues? Right now? What bonds are currently being paid down using fees from the accommodations tax?
so, goodness, hospitality, and we can look on the expenditure side, but 75% of the bond that the city issued to renovate the marina docks, that's being paid with state aid tax money.
And what's the term of the bond?
15 years?
15 years, probably what, 2 years into it,
Mhm,
the 13 years remaining.
mhm. As I recall, and don't hold me to this, I don't think it's legally bound.
Okay.
So we could fund it in a different way.
Okay. Just curious.
Mhm. And then we also pay for the lease payments on 2 fire trucks out of accommodations money. And you can see all those details on the budget, this long document. So the city's accounting records are organized by fund. There's a state accommodations tax fund that the 65 and the 35 or 65 and 30 go into. And then there's a municipal accommodations tax fund that the county and the city's 1% goes into. And then there's a beach preservation fund that the 1% beach money goes to. So all those budgets are included here. And this is the FY 22 budget. We're working currently, of course, on the FY 23 budget. But because there are so many numbers on here, I created this schedule, and this was not emailed to y'all. I just did it yesterday to try to pull together, again, for perspective, in total, what accommodations taxes pay for. So the first chart is a summary by department. And as the department, I listed the CVB contribution because it's kind of its own animal. And then there's a summary by type of expense. So capital expenditures, these are purchases of patrol vehicles, pickup trucks. Not in this budget, but in other budgets, we purchased garbage packers with accommodations tax money. A lot of the rolling stock you would see at the beach, the patrol vehicles that the BSOs use, the jet skis that are in the water, almost all of the time, those are paid for with accommodations tax money.
So that's front beach.
Mhm. The public restrooms are 100% funded with state accommodations tax money. All the BSOs, the parking, the guys that write the parking tickets, 100% of their salaries are paid for with accommodations tax. It might be muni versus state, but if you look at it in total, accommodations tax funds all those things. Also, in FY '22, we spent $445,000 of accommodations tax money. It wasn't state, I believe it was muni, on drainage. So we can definitely make the case that proper drainage and not having water on the roads is important for people who spend the night to get to where they're going. So there is always a tie-in to tourism if you look hard enough for it.
And septic tanks. and
I guess rental houses have septic.
Debbie, when you submit this to Turk?
So Turk only, I only submit to Turk on the state ATAX.
Okay.
And only on the, up to now, only on the 65% section. The form for Turk, there's a lot of detail on how the 65% is spent. And then there's just a single line that says, where is your 30% going?
Right.
Going forward, the Turk is requiring that we send the budget, so the CVB's budget, and then afterwards, the CVB is supposed to report on the, how the budget was actually attained, like an after action.
Have they published any sort of budget format that they're expecting from a DMO?
Has the Turk?
Yes.
No. They, I think I'm stating this correctly, they're leaving that to the city councils to make sure that whatever they're provided, as far as a budget from a DMO, meets the city's requirements. The city is the watchdog.
Questions?
Is there anywhere else in the budget that it's used on marketing and promotion of the island, other than the 30% that gets paid out to the CBD? So this is the only place in the budget that the city spends money on marketing and promotion.
But for clarity, these numbers we're dealing with right now obviously are not just dealing with the 30% that we're here to discuss. This is the total,
Correct.
right? So, but for our purposes, we're really focused on that 30%, which would be kind of the 15%.
Right.
Talk about confusing.
I know.
But you did a really good job at breaking all this down for us.
So, yeah, the CVB contribution, at 675. This is the budget. Remember, this is, the pie chart is actual. This is a budget. That 15% is the tourism promotion piece of everything that the city receives.
Debbie, I know you'll do this, but this is a handout today. Nice job with this. You will make sure that we get this included in the packet that's online so that the public could access.
Oh,
it.
absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments?
It seems that there is resistance to spending more money on tourism. And it seems like that our job should be letting the public know all the things that tourism pays for, that were not a problem, that we contribute. And these are the things that we provide. I had no idea about the front beach toilet being paid by the accommodations tax, all these different things. I had no idea. And I don't think most people do. And so they just see the traffic, they just see all the negatives. But I think that part of our job should be letting the public know, look at all the things, hundreds of thousands dollars that we paid for,
Mhm.
our accommodation tax pays for. And that's part of our job, I think, to advertise that, so we won't get so much resistance, so much bitterness towards tourism.
That's a good point, Curtis, and I'd like to say that I think currently what we have with the new administration, mayor's messages that are being posted on a frequent basis out there on the isleofpalms.net website, coffee with the mayor, those kind of things. I guess I'm giving a commercial for the mayor here, but I think all of that is working towards the goal of making sure that we have as much open communication as we can, that we educate the public as much as we can. And I would encourage anyone that wants to spend a little time, if they go to isleofpalms.net, and you really start digging down into that website, you can find a lot of information there that would be very helpful for everybody.
It seems like Island Watch, the newspaper, would be a great way to list all these things. I don't know if most people read Island Watch, but I do. And I find it very informative. So I don't know who would be responsible. Is that something that accommodations tax people are supposed to do as a way to advertise the good things?
I
Who
know
does
that the reporters from the Island Eye often cover city activities. I actually thought one was in the,
Yep. We have one here today.
there you go.
Well, the mayor, writes a letter all the time. And part of that letter could possibly be a breakdown of where all this money goes and how we benefit on this island.
I agree with you, Curtis. I think that putting that maybe even into a graphic and making some sort of ad in the Island Eye that's
Yes.
sponsored by, there is a portion of the 65% of accommodations tax that we are allowed to use in advertising and promotion.
Yeah.
But again, walking that line and showing residents and being very transparent with residents about where that money is being spent to help not only visitor quality of life, but really, our quality of life as residents, I think is incredibly important.
Yeah, I think for what we're tasked with, though, I'm not sure that, I'm a fan of the Island Eye, but I'm not sure that the 30% that we deal with would be something that would be funded out of that 30% anyway, would have to be out of the 65%. Yeah, because it's really not reaching tourists 50 miles away. It's more local.
Question
But-
on
Good questions.
the property taxes. What percentage of the 24% would you say is driven by short-term rentals as well as hotel property taxes? Probably a good portion of that 24% is driven by tourism-related assets.
Right. And, if you don't have the resident rate, the resident 4% rate, chances are if it's a second home or a commercial property, you're paying at the 6% higher assessed value rate. Past analysis that we've done, looking at just short-term, just at residential buildings, not commercial, have indicated it's kind of a third, a third, a third. A third full-time residents, a third second homes that aren't rented, and a third rental properties. And that mix is going to shift over time, up and down.
And then same with licenses and permits. What percentage of that would you say is tourism?
Well, I did try to add a note at the bottom. Business licenses, the rate for short-term rentals, whether it's a condo or a house or a hotel, is 0.46 of annual gross earnings. So you can kind of do that math. It's about 0.5%.
What I'm getting at here is the only funds that the city has to feed the beast, so to speak, is this 30% that we're, driven to give to, a destination marketing organization. But the reason why I asked this question is, it's my suspicion that the entire city budget is highly dependent on tourism and the dollars that tourism brings in.
No question.
Definitely. Any other questions for Debbie? Debbie, thank you so much.
Well,
As always, very good information. Uh, I'd like to just move on real quickly and ask the task force here on item 6, discussion of what additional data / research information you think we need. We've heard from CVB, we've heard from Folly Beach. I'd like to just open it up very quickly to the group. What would you like to see next or hear next? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah.
Okay.
We've not discussed what the heck we want. What do we want? What do we want that we're not getting from our accommodations? We're not kind of pinpointing anything in particular that we'd like to promote. And I think that's something I thought this committee was supposed to come up with. And I like all the information, but eventually we need to come up with something that we would all like, that we're not getting from our accommodations tax. I don't know if that's the time to talk about it or if it's at a later time, but I think that that's the purpose of this committee, I thought.
It is, fair question. This is our third meeting. You know, it seems like it's been longer, but this is really just the third meeting we've had. And what we've tried to do is, you know, the first meeting was really sort of a educational experience that we had. The second meeting was the CVB. The third meeting today was Folly Beach. And I would like to see us relatively quickly get to that point where we say, okay, we've heard from any other entity that we want to hear from, and then we can really start looking at what we think as a group we want to see in terms of recommendations that we take to council. So if that's 1 meeting away or 2 meetings away or 3 meetings away, I don't know at this point. I'm not sure any of us know, but I guess right now I would just like to have any thoughts, and that was a good one, and one that we have to ultimately get to. Is there any other
I think
entities?
following up on what Curtis said is, when you think of Kiowa, there's a brand, that's a brand. Folly has created a brand. Wild Dunes is Charleston's Island Tour. That's a brand. Isle Palms doesn't have a brand. We're islepalms.net. And if we're going to spend money, it would have to be in a separate organization other than, this is what the CVP is not doing for us. They haven't helped us create a brand that would, and again, would, in my mind, be developed based on a higher clientele. You heard Tim Goodman talk about there are 2 different, you know, I like to tell everybody my Folly Beach office is our tattoo and tank top shop. You know, and it is. It was a little different brand than the Isle of Palms, which is a little different brand than Wild Dunes, which is a little different brand than Kiowa, which is a little different brand than Palm Beach. So if we're going to spend money in a way to elevate the guests that come here, then we need brand.
I'm gonna go ahead and interject real quick on this because, and I don't, you know, I'm the president of the Chamber of Commerce, and that's something that we are in development of right now. It's something that we took on as one of our biggest priorities, was to find, discover, collaborate on a brand for the Isle of Palms. Because you're right, we don't have one. When people think of Isle of Palms, they might think of a picture of the beach, I hope. Maybe they think of a yellow trash can. Maybe they think of the big building that they just built for, you know, the sea cabin. Maybe they think of Wild Dunes. We don't have that defined.
Actually, don't think about it at all, frankly.
Right, and that's, it really should be top of mind. I feel like we're there from a tourism aspect, from a revenue aspect. I mean, we're getting up to be a big dog. But we're really kind of behind the ball and having that brand, and that, quite frankly, a professional marketing agency who's taking that on as something that they do. So I don't know if that helps at all, but that's something that, as a chamber, I know the businesses were interested in letting everyone know that we are in the development of a brand. And how is that gonna coexist with what accommodations tax?
You know, I wonder if we should talk to Little Dog Agency and see what maybe they would suggest to help promote our island. Since they're doing, obviously, it sounds like a good job at Folly. So maybe we should tap into them. They're local. Folly's already done all the explorations on different agencies. So why not talk to them?
That good with everybody?
There's others you should talk to.
Oh.
I keep, I mean, no
Okay.
question in my mind, Little Dog's great, I'm sure. But we keep, you know, I spent a long time yesterday with our vice president of marketing, who's written to Ray about the value of CDD to us. But the Google Analytics that comes from their website for as far as our benefit, zero. So I mean, it's got to be something more than what they're doing.
And you've got names of people, of
Oh.
companies?
I would defer that to my people. I know who they do, but I mean, there's others than just the one we're using right now. But there's branding, logos, slogans, and then there's marketing. But there's, you know, analytics and advertising, and it's all digital. So, but you've got to have something. This island needs something that people can immediately identify with, whether it's a symbol or whether it's a slogan. But it's all related to the brand, you know, and frankly, if you want more families here, then you want to probably bring that up. Family, you know, Charleston's Family Beach or something. Charleston is very important to the name of Calapanz, because, and that's where the CBD, you know, gives you the old high tide with salt touch. But if he said it when he identified the rowdies. You know, we used to be able to call them thugs, but you can't do that anymore. So, you know, we need to, if that's what we want, and if that's going to please our residents, as opposed to what I used to call the two-board tooting, marble smoking golfers that are here for 3 days, and they don't really care about how much they smoke inside the condominium. If we want something different than that, then we got to think that through as a brand, and then that's not, you know, that's not where we need somebody that we can hire that with that money that knows what they're doing. Might be Little Dog, but I don't know if that would be the case.
Would it be fair to say as a next assignment, next steps, that we take away this conversation here that Ray started about what do we want going forward, the branding discussion, and for our next meeting, see what we can come up with in terms of presentation that would, you know, give us a little more clarity?
Who's gonna do all that? Who's gonna pick someone to come and talk to?
We'll do that. We'll take care of that and get it out to the task force. That will probably be the city administrator that will take point on that. Okay.
So are we going to be asking agencies to come give a presentation and analyze that, or?
We very possibly could, yeah. Let us do that as a takeaway for the next steps. We'll circle around and we'll get the communication back out to the task force, you know, based on this conversation here. And we'll see what we can come up with for our next meeting. How about that? That'd be good? Agreed. Okay. All right. Any other thoughts before we set a date for the next meeting? All right, hearing none. How does April 14th appear? That good for everybody? It's not
Spring break.
spring break? Yeah.
Wow. That's pretty cool. Good job.
That
It's
entire
online,
week.
the whole city
Problems
budget's
there.
online. That's just a few
I'm
days.
one person.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Is the 14th good for everybody else? Sarah's got a conflict, but I think if we keep these meetings going every couple of weeks.
Thursday, it's 2 weeks from today.
Yes. Be Thursday at 9 a.m., just as 2 weeks from today, basically. Good? Okay. So April 14th, we will reconvene and we will get some information out to you all to look at as to our takeaway here, our assignments. So, all right. So Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 I'll record at 10:26.